Hello, good evening, good afternoon, I should say. We're taping a special edition of Mi Gente on Air, and I want to invite everybody to come into the room here on the live stream with my guest and I as we talk about civil rights and organizing and civil liberties and just so much that is happening in the world today. From the last time I'm talking to my producer here, Matthew. From the last time I was here, so much has happened. With the President Trump's first 2 weeks in office, and so we're here in a very contentious time for Latinos, and that's what this show is about. It is for Latinos, and it's about Latinos. It's about our contributions. It's about our concerns. It's about our culture. So we really are in a special time, I would say, because we have not seen this type of interaction that is happening and so much hate that is spilling over in this time when we have to really be organized as a community and come together. And so I want to dedicate this show to all of those out there who are listening that are kind of worried about the times and what we're seeing. And I just want to, welcome everybody to come into the room. If you got a concern or a question, put it in the chat room and we can address it with our guests, or I can try to address it. But we, have this show so that we have a platform, that we have a voice at the table, and that we can kind of address it. So join me, everybody, come on into the room as we talk today with my guest. Her name is Faith Sines, and she's a Saginaw native. And she is doing some great work with the American Civil Liberties Union. And I'm really proud to have her as my guest today. So please join us here on Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your guest, Larry Rodarte, and I'm so proud to be here tonight to have this voice because if you hear that music, it sounds a little chaotic, and I think we are living in some really chaotic times. And from the last time I was on this show, I think things have just changed overnight into kind of a dark place. And I'm saying that because, as you know, the immigrant issue in this country has taken a turn, of course, with the new president. And I'm all for, our laws and everything else. But I also have empathy, of course, because this is my people. This is why we have a show like Mi Gente on Air to talk about the issues, the concerns, and the contributions of Latinos in our community. And so there's so much happening. There was the Capitol protest in Lansing just this week. 50 states, 50 cities, 50 capitals. We also have a protest that's going to be happening in Pontiac, Michigan on this Sunday, on the day that this program is going to air. And there's this ugliness that is happening in Howell, Michigan, just 1 hour from Saginaw, and where we have a Nazi flag that is being flown in Howell in protest, and they're calling Latinas spics on the air. So it's just a really tough time for our community, and I know everybody's kind of unease at the edge of their seats, and there's a lot of anxiety and angst. And so I invited somebody today who is from the American Civil Liberties Union, and she's a Saginaw native, and she's doing some really great work on a statewide level. And her name is Faith Sines. Faith, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because this show is going to be airing at different times, and I want to address my community and my non-listeners. How are you?
I'm doing well, Larry. Thank you so much for having me.
You must be so busy from the beginning of the year until now. Drastically has changed. Can you tell me a little bit about what the American Civil Liberties actually does, American Civil Liberties Union? Because I think a lot of people, they hear about the ACLU and they don't actually know what it does. So I want to inform our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll shorten this up a little bit, and moving forward, we can probably say ACLU of Michigan, just so it's not too much of a mouthful going forward.
Yeah.
But the ACLU of Michigan, at its foundation, we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization who's essentially dedicated to defending and also expanding the civil rights and civil liberties of all people in the state of Michigan. As a whole, we exist along 53 affiliates across the country, as well as our national ACLU. And the ACLU is actually an organization that expands the existence for over 100 plus years. And we, additionally to that, have spanned the existence of 19 presidential administrations and holding all of them, Democrat or Republican, accountable for protecting civil liberties. Within our organization, we like to call what our approach is an integrated advocacy approach. Most notably, and historically, we're probably known for our litigation and what we do in the legal realms in courts. But we also have really centered ourselves to be able to expand politically and through advocacy, and also what we're doing today in publicly educating our communities and ensuring where your resources and tools are at and where protections lie, especially in state.
Well, I know it's done some really good work through the years. And I mean, that's a long time, a long history, 19 presidents. And I think this is probably one of the most contentious times in the Oval Office. And I think that we, as a community, are being targeted now. I'm talking about the Latino community. In 2020, we actually went through a really rough time as a nation because of the George Floyd, and not just George Floyd, not just his killing, but also many of the arrests of black men in this country, and it led up to people being angered and having protests, the Black Lives Matter movement, and all. And I feel like here we are again now in 2025, and this time it's the Latino community, and so it's really an important time to know our rights as a community, to know the rights for our immigrant population because they are human and they do have rights. And I just wanted you to kind of address that from your standpoint with the ACLU.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most importantly, too, we have to recognize where our power is. And so we can recognize that while nonpartisan, we see that there might be minimal movement that can happen at the federal level in Congress, right? If we were to propose a bill that was pro civil right, pro civil liberty, chances are of that passing are very slim. And similarly, we can look in state now, too, given who holds the political power in that nature, that the fact that our House and our Senate are split amongst party lines, and the chances to move bipartisan legislation are also slim. And so, what does that mean, right? The most obvious and next natural question is, where should we then put our power and resources? And that's local. That's building our municipal power. That's building our communities and local leaders at the ground, and ensuring that they have all of the resources and tools that we can equip those with to be able to make really immense and powerful change. Something that we're looking at, and most recently, an example of what we've done in collaboration, especially with our immigration work. We've worked closely with Michigan Immigrants' Rights Center, shorthand MERC. And last week, we sent a letter out to every school district and school building in the state of Michigan, explicitly outlining the protections and policies that must be put in place to protect all students, regardless of immigration status, and their access to education. We also included an ICE policy checklist because I think folks are concerned of what were to happen if ICE agents were to show up at a school and demand access to children and their privacy data. We explicitly outline the policies that schools have to follow in order to protect our students and protect our youth as they're pursuing their education. So these levels of accountability, they don't stop at the federal level. They start at the ground up in order for us to really build these measures of accountability in places where we can actually put action into the work that we're doing.
Wow, that's quite a bit, and I know that's why you're so busy at this time. And as you said, it's a nonpartisan organization, and I'm not even worried about any more Democrats, Republicans, or whatever. I just don't like to see the hate that is spilling over, that has been emboldened by a certain entity, and that it just seems like that hatred has really increased in the last 2 weeks. And so my concern is for, of course, all people, the civil rights, making sure that their rights are being addressed, whether if there is any like right now, I don't think in the Saginaw community there has been any arrest in terms of immigration issues and all, but I know that our neighboring communities of Southwest Detroit,
Mhm.
that is where they have really targeted, as well as Pontiac. And I think that's why there is a organization, I mean, or organized protest that is happening this Sunday in Pontiac. And, I think we're going to see this across the country. The 50 states, 50 capitals protest that happened, I think it was on Tuesday. That was huge. There was a lot of people coming together in faith. I'm old enough to actually remember the civil rights movement in the 60s, in the late 60s, in the 68 when the Tigers won the World Series. I
Mm.
actually remember that was a calming effect to what was happening in our country and in Detroit, because it was such a contentious area at that time. So it's like history repeating itself. And it's really something for me today to see the Unión Cívica Mexicana. We're celebrating 80 years as an organization, began and founded in 1945 because of the civil rights issues that were happening with our migrant population and the immigrant population. And here we are 80 years later, still fighting the same fight. It's just it's just crazy. And you hear the angst in my voice. I know my listeners who listen to me in and out every week, definitely a lot of anxiety happening. I
Mhm.
can't sleep at night. Sometimes I have restless leg syndrome going on, because and I'm questioning, like, why can't I sleep? And then I realize, it's the anxiety that I'm feeling, many in the community are feeling. And so, we look to your organization, because they are doing the work that is necessary for this time and place in our history. And so, how busy has it been for you in the last 2 weeks? Tell me about your days there at the ACLU.
Yes, my days have been very long. We originally wanted to chat earlier in the week, and I was super apologetic that I had prior commitments, and that is, I think, the nature of our organization. Right, we're here ready to not only respond to the mass amount of urgency that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis, but also be proactive. Right, so we want to be as prepared to meet head-on the Trump administration and any threats that we're starting to see. But that also means we have to be strategic. And that strategy comes in being able to work collaboratively with not only our affiliates across the country, but also organizations across the state. That's why we work so closely with Merck and other organizations to ensure that this establishment of resources are there. But I would be remiss to say that my days have not been long, and they have not been tiresome as well. I've been just sharing with folks transparently that shed some grace our way too, where we are also similarly hearing of things at the same rate as others and having to build responses and strategies, and I would say it's a two-stoned, fortunately slash unfortunately measure, where we were prepared to respond in many of the executive orders that came day one. Day one, the executive order to ban birthright citizenship, we immediately filed a lawsuit ensuring that that was known, that it was unconstitutional, and it was immediately given a temporary injunction, which basically means that it was paused, and most recently given a longstanding injunction. And so, being able to put ourselves in the positions of not only having the strategy to be prepared for some of the things coming our way, I think puts us in a good position to be ready and poised to be able to have these resources ready, and also build long-term strategies to withstand and sustain this work for another 100 years, because we've done this for the last 100 years. We did the Trump 1.0 presidency, and we're ready and prepared to do Trump 2.0 and then some.
Yeah, how unbelievable, the birthright citizenship, trying to take that away under the 14th Amendment. And all my life, I have known that if you're born in this country and you're born in this land, you are an American citizen. And that is being attacked. And I believe a judge, maybe two times, has shot that down
That's
in regard
correct.
Yeah. So
And
it's
actually a Reagan-appointed judge. So it's important to note, right, where these buckets and places of power are, and where accountability lies, and also where we can maybe even look to some places in the courts to actually hold these realms of power appropriately.
yeah, yeah. So like within our community, and this is for everybody to hear. I'm talking about the Latino community specifically right now. There are red cards that are being passed around for those people that have empathy, and it's for in the event that there is a raid on a business, or if there's a raid in a household or whatever. Can you tell us a little bit about those red cards and how and what they say?
Yes, absolutely. And then I can be sure to, as a follow-up, ensure that you all have the resources on your own. That if you have the ability to print these out, if you have the ability to just save it on your phone, we have those resources directed right on our website. But this is a rights card. The current one that we have is both in English and Spanish, more languages to come for accessibility purposes. But it is a card that explicitly names one, you're acknowledging that potentially you are interacting with a law enforcement agency, whether that be ICE, whether that be CBP, or a regular law officer. You're acknowledging that you want to remain silent. You know your rights, and you're exercising that right to remain silent, and also ensuring that you have the right to speak to an attorney prior to answering any questions. And it also gives you some preparatory tools to be able to name and write out the name of your attorney in the case that you have prepared for the scenario, or the organization that you would like to offer assistance. And this is a card that we encourage all folks, whether you're of status and documented or not. And this is a tool that we can just ensure that all of our community members have in preparation for any run-in with law enforcement agencies.
On the ground level, the organization, have they been involved with any of the communities here in Michigan that may be experiencing a heavy presence of ICE, or any law enforcement that or law enforcement abuses, or even everyday citizens abuses, like we saw in Hull yesterday with this individual who was carrying the Nazi flag, and there was a counter protest on it as well. But have you witnessed, or the organization been involved with anything that they had to been called to?
We have, and I can maybe name something that is a few years back, but still resonates for what we unfortunately are still anticipating to see now. And so we actually filed a lawsuit back in, I believe this was 2019, where it was the ACLU in collaboration with Merck, which is again the Michigan Immigrants' Rights Center, because Grand Rapids Police actually arrested a veteran U.S. citizen under the guise that they thought this was an undocumented immigrant. And although on camera it shows them looking at the passport that has the individual's name and proof of U.S. citizenship, they still arrested this individual and called ICE to actually put forth deportation status against this person. And so we filed a lawsuit immediately against the actually Michigan Department of Civil Rights and Grand Rapids Police Department, issuing the unlaw and undue process of this, and the fact that this was a U.S. citizen that was unduly processed for what they assumed was someone who was undocumented and wasn't. And the initial cause of the stop was for jaywalking. So you can see the elevation and how oftentimes when folks might be interacting with law enforcement, how that can progress into something larger. This is why we give you tools for knowing your rights and ensure that you in the case where you are interacting with law enforcement, you know how to interact, and for example, to have that red card on you so you can ensure that you're protected.
Yes, yes. Well, I know that we are addressing this issue head on right now today, and I just want to make sure my listeners understand. I know that not everybody may have some of the hatred that's spilling out from some of the extremists who are, taking the keys away from an immigrant who they think is an immigrant or an undocumented person. Turns out it wasn't. I think that was in South Carolina. These issues and these incidences are going to continue to increase as we go into this presidency in the 4 years, because he has emboldened this hatred that is happening in these communities and throughout our nation. No doubt about it. We know this. But we can't blame any side, whether Republican or Democrat. We can only hope that people of good will are going to stand up for what is right and what is decent, and have, their moral compass, favoring humanity. And that's what this is. We are all human. We all have rights. And we are a free country to speak our minds. Yes, and we can counter protests when necessary. But just like during the Black Lives Matter, we're here again. We're here again marching and protesting because people want to take away rights from other people. So that's where I'm standing, and it's really surreal to me that we're here. That we're here at this time, and it came swiftly. We knew it was coming. We seen what happened, and people were hurt in November and people were happy in November. We got both sides. That's democracy. The democracy played out in this last election. And unfortunately, from my point of view and how I believe, Donald Trump got 77 million votes. Kamala Harris had 75 million votes. It wasn't a landslide by any means. And unfortunately, we are at a crossroads because half of America, sees things differently from the other half that actually helped win and put Donald Trump back into office. And so, I'm hoping that people are educated, get educated in regards to these issues and all, because our people and our community, we're going to need the help. This is a tough time we are living in. And I think the American Civil Liberties Union is probably going to be inundated with all kinds of things that are happening. We're seeing increase every day. My advice to everybody out there, if you have anxiety, if you have just, rage at what you may be seeing, turn the news off, get off social media, because what's important, really important to all of us, is our mental health. And this type of thing can draw people over the edge. And I don't know. I don't know what people are feeling outside of my community, I guess. And I hope that it's, everybody sees this for what it is. They're going after the Department of Education today. Congresswoman was kept from going into the office. You're seeing that going virally today, and what's happening with Elon Musk trying to go after that department. So, I mean, it's like an everyday thing. And I think that that's what they're trying to do, is divide and have fear tactics that are going to make us, really on edge. And so, I want to say, cálmese, calm, everybody calm down, because I don't want to see our country continually on that road of path of protesting all the time. And I don't know if anybody's got any comments or any questions. Feel free to put them in the chat room here, and we'll try to address them with our guests. And just thank you for being with me here today on this special edition of Mi Gente on Air, as we talk about immigration issues and civil rights liberties that the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU.
There we go.
There we go. And that's why we say ACLU. And Faith Signs, who's a Saginaw native, works for that as what is your actual title? Because I want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah, I'm an organizing strategist.
Yes. Yep. And so she's here with us today. I'm very proud of her. I know her parents. I know her family, and I'm just so happy because you know what? She also received a scholarship a few years back from the Unión Cívica Mexicana, right?
I did while I was still at Michigan State.
Yeah, so see, well, we're going to come back. We're going to go into a commercial real quick, and we'll be back here on Mi Gente on Air. So there you have it. Welcome everybody who's in the chat room. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I just want to read some of the comments real quick as we're on the live stream and not on the actual show. But Lexi Ann Tuki Signs said, Faithy, and with a big old heart. So she's real happy you're on here. Henry Signs says she's a star. And Alyssa Arroyo, she's got a bunch of clapping hands. And Val Blanco says, if no one has told you yet, thank you for doing what you do. That's
Thank
really
you.
nice. Yeah. So Angela Rose Sign says, hi, baby. I'm so proud of you. And we've got also Amina Afaraj Signs. She says, so proud of you too. Got a lot of people proud of you, Faith.
Are you seeing all of the same last names?
Yeah. Oh, Dustin Rodriguez Medina. She says, I'm proud of her too. And Diana Rivera, one of my mentors at Michigan State University, and I'm sure you knew her if you went to MSU as well, says, go Green Faith. So
Go white.
Go white. Yes. So, it's really tough for me to sit here today because it's been a hard 2 weeks. It really has. When in my career journalism, I have always been for the people, and found quickly when we started Mi Gente 30 years ago that I had to be an activist, an advocate for our community. And it's just been really tough in these last 2 weeks. And so to see what is happening, I never thought in my lifetime I would see that. And I seen it when I was very young, but I didn't understand it. Today I understand it. It's a whole different vibe. So, I asked Faith to come on here and to talk with us and give us some information about what her organization does and how we can help to arm ourselves as a community to help make sure that our civil liberties are being addressed, and that we are not being victimized. So thank you, Faith, for being with us here today. And you got a lot of people on here, and I do see David Signs as well. She said, trailblazer. So proud of you, Mija. So that is, it's really a beautiful thing to see that your family supports you in this work. And I'm like I said, I'm right there with your dad. I'm very proud of you too. And when I've seen you speak before in the past, I was just like, wow, man, I'm so proud of her, So let's go back into the show. Let's talk a little bit more with Faith Signs on Mi Gente on Air.
You're listening to Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. Thank you for being with me here on Mi Gente on Air, a show that is in production here about Latino concerns, contributions, and our culture. And, we do a lot in regards to culture. We have people who write books. I have them as my guests. And, community entrepreneurs I've had on this show. I've had Carlos Santana on this show, great entertainer. And it seems like we're going to have to be a little bit more of an advocacy show as we deal with the issues that are happening with our community, with our country. And so today I have invited a guest from the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Her name is Faith Signs. And I'm so happy that she's with us today to give us a little bit of information about what her organization does. And there's so much. Is there anything, Faith, that you feel is really a hot topic that you'd like to talk about today?
Yeah, I think first I'd like to maybe just give acknowledgement to what I can only imagine is this plethora of urgency that many are probably feeling across the state, across the country, but especially in our community. And I have to just say, I hear you. We're with you. We understand. But I also have to encourage you to channel that. Let's channel that urgency, channel that anger, the feelings of emotion, and of course, prioritize where our capacity is, acknowledge where our mental health is at, and turning things off when we need a little bit of a break, but also channeling that and understanding where our resources and where our power actually lies. And that lies in community, that lies in building advocacy and encouraging policies and different power at every political level. And I just have to continue to acknowledge that just as we as an organization have been in existence for the last 100 years, we have many plans to continue that mark 100 years plus. We've seen 19 presidencies. We have plans to see the 19 next. And that should just give encouragement that in this work, we don't do it alone. We cannot possibly do this or this organizing work lonesome and just amongst those who are within our circle, which is why I always take the opportunity to talk with our community and ensure that they know where resources lie and also how important it is to be strategic in the way that we respond. The sense of urgency that we're feeling across the country is purposeful. We're meant to be feeling overwhelmed. We're meant to be feeling like we have unlimited portions of capacity, especially as we start to be distracted by executive orders, things that are happening in Congress. And mind you, we have to remember we are on week 3 going into, right? So we have 4 years of this, and we have to sustain our work long standing to be able to really put pressure across the board, but also to ensure that we are building our own power and we're building long-term strategies to respond to that power. So I just have to give acknowledgement and give it encouragement in that space, and that this is purposeful. We're meant to feel distracted. We're meant to feel overburdened and overwhelmed. And that's where we take a step back, build long-term strategies, and ensure that we're not getting burned out at the pace that they're wanting us to.
Yes, yes. And you said that, nicely said. I want to mention that I saw an article a couple days ago on the Saginaw News, M Live, I should say. And it talked about Sheriff Fettersfield here in Saginaw, as well as the Saginaw Police Chief, Ruth, who said that they had not been contacted by ICE. And one of the things that I wanted to address was that there are those who feel that they want to conquer and divide by bringing false information on social media and in the internet. Somebody published that ICE was going after many undocumented immigrants in restaurants within the Great Lakes Bay region, and they listed restaurants, Mexican restaurants, as well as Chinese restaurants, other Asian restaurants, and it wasn't true. It wasn't. They just wanted to, cite the minds of everybody to, yep, you're going back. I mean, that's where we are in this country now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I say to, all my listeners, to our friends out there, people of goodwill who see this for really what it is. And it's a really tough time. And I feel that there are many people out there who feel threatened that they didn't prior to January, and they really do now. They want to watch their backs or what have you. So, people like you, Faith, as well as the ACLU, it gives us, hope. It gives us, it calms our nerves, if you will, like I've said. And it's really too bad that we have to live like this in America in 2025. It's just unbelievable to me. And that's why I've used the words surreal, because we're here. We're here now. And it's unfortunate that it has led to this time. And we all know our immigration system is broken. It has been for a long time. And there has been other presidents like Barack Obama,
Correct.
who did do something about the immigration issue, and they did send people back to their countries and all. But none of them, I don't think, actually, propagated the hate that goes along with it, and has made the word immigrant or migrant a bad word. And it's just not something that I grew up with knowing. And it sure seems to have come to the forefront because they've made it, where they're dividing and conquering and pitting immigrants against Americans. And that's inclusive of Mexican Americans as well. But please know, that, and this is just the way I feel. I'm saying that, whether you're undocumented, whether you are a Mexican American born citizen of this country, sometimes they don't look at you any different. You're one and the same. And it's, I'm here to help and to support my people in any way I can, because I firmly believe that at one time we were all immigrants to this land. And, I may have been born here and I have the rights of an American citizen, but my grandparents weren't, and that's only 2 generations away. And I think that the diversity of this nation has really built this country. The diversity on all walks have really made America great. And so that's just my spiel coming from me. And on Mi Gente on Air, I hope that, I want to welcome opinions and guests who can talk to this issue like Faith is today. And I'm not looking to argue with anybody anymore. Though that time has passed. The election has passed in November. And we have to deal with this sitting president for the next 4 years. Like Faith says, we're only in week 3, and so we really have to be knowledgeable and educated about our rights and how we can help those who may be marginalized and whose civil rights may be taken away. So is there something that the ACLU is involved with right now, particularly this, say, weekend?
That's a great question. I want to first, something that I've maybe mentioned a few times is building this long-term strategy, right? Building a long-term plan and approach to be able to interact with this work. And something that we at the ACLU have kind of named is we want to build firewalls for freedom. We want to ensure that our communities are protected, and building firewalls to ensure that there are protections for civil rights and civil liberties on every front. I've named that strategy is actually starting local and working with our local municipalities. It's also holding our local municipalities accountable. I named earlier that we released a letter with in collaboration with Merck to all school counties and school boards in the state. So if you are a parent, if you have children, if you know of parents, make sure that you're holding your schools accountable. Are your schools implementing proactive policies to protect students' rights to privacy and education, regardless of immigration status? Are you able to attend your city council meetings and ensure that maybe they can pass a resolution to ensure that there are safety mechanisms that are put in place across the city, making sure that local law enforcement, they aren't getting deputized to enact and being able to act on official acts of ICE agents. There are multiple ways that we can expand, and while protesting and being able to be in that space is proactive, and it's a great example of advocacy, we have to expand on that and also meet people where they're at, build communities and build teams to be in response and be proactive to answer these things on that local level. So I encourage folks that if you are interested in wondering how you can get involved and wondering how you can create these communities amongst yourselves, reach out. I'm always available and willing to talk with folks, be the hub of education and resource for you all, to be able to go to your city council and tell your city council, we want in writing the safety and protections and the expansion of these pro-civil rights, civil liberty policies cemented in writing and on paper. So that's an example that I can give, in the ways that we are really being proactive across the state at the local level to ensure that these protections are solidified within our communities.
Now, I know that I have heard myself for precautionary measures, they're I don't know who is bringing this to the table or whatever, but they're saying to make sure, if you can, to get a passport. And again, I'm talking to members of my community, whether you're born here in America or not. It's important to be proactive to make sure your safety, for one, as well as making sure that you're not going to be detained over some just because of the way you look. So what is ACLU saying about that?
Yeah, so we have recommendations on what you can do to prepare. We name it as before an immigration arrest. And this expands, like Larry mentioned, to not just folks who identify as undocumented, but also ourselves, right? This is maybe something that I need to be doing as well. And we encourage folks that in preparation, make sure that you have copies of important documents that are easily accessible. Those documents can be as mentioned, a passport. I know this is maybe not as accessible, but a birth certificate, a marriage license, some tangible documents that have proof of identification, that have proof of residency, if you have that, and in making sure that you have copies of those that you entrust with a family member or a close friend in case there is an emergency and in the unfortunate circumstance where there is an arrest. And so in addition to that, having these tangible documents, we also encourage folks that if you are in this position, to make sure that you're speaking with a trusted immigration attorney, making sure that you understand and know your immigration situation and your status, and making sure that, you know, along with this red card that we've talked about earlier, that you also have the name and the number of someone that can be contacted if the case that there is an arrest present.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, you know, we have a lot of people in the room today, and we've got a number of different questions. Diana Rivera, she says, "Will the rights cards be shared distributed at the Dia de la Mujer conference in March? Lead Michigan can share information you want distributed on our webpage and Facebook pages as well."
Yeah, that's wonderful. I would love to connect with you. We actually have a form that organizations can fill out if they're requesting physical copies of Know Your Rights. Otherwise, I'm also happy to send those via email if you are have the capability of printing those on your own. But I can drop my contact information, or you can go directly to aclumich.org, and our information is on our website as well.
Also, Diana Rivera, she's asking, she says, "Are there any suggestions, precautions in particular to our women or LGBTQ or undocumented community members if they are picked up by ICE?"
Yeah, that's a great question, and also something that we are haven't quite maybe seen yet, but are anticipating. We know that at the federal level, there have been many attempts to strip some of those protections away for our LGBTQ plus community members, and the same goes, right? We want to ensure that there are tangible documents that they have copies of, passport, birth certificate, and that there are copies of those with a family member, close or close friend, in the case of an emergency. And that's where we have to have built that foundation at, is making sure that those documentations are tangible and present on you and with a close friend or family.
And have you faith in your work there with the ACLU and in preparation of knowing that this administration was coming? Are you surprised at what we're seeing today?
Unfortunately, we are not. I wish I could say yes, but I say no. And the reason why we aren't is because we've learned and saw what happened in the Trump 1.0 presidency, right? And we also we take these threats that were happening during the campaign very serious. We did a lot of education on Project 2025 that we're seeing come to fruition. This is not a surprise to us. This is something that was written and very readily accessible and available for folks. And we're seeing this happen in time to everything that is going on. That is why on day one, we were ready to respond with litigation against the attempt to end birthright citizenship and immediately get that struck down.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's just, I don't know. I guess because I've lived a little bit longer than you, a lot longer than you, right? You know, it's in my lifetime. I really haven't seen this. You know, I did when I was very young, didn't understand it. Like I said, in the late '60s, but I can tell you that when I would travel abroad to Europe when I was a young man, I think I was 20 years old, and I went to Dachau, the concentration camp, and I learned then about the Holocaust. And you know, it was in my face when I went through the museum and actually seen what humanity is capable of, and it really just struck a nerve with me back then. And I never thought that I would see the, you know, the 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 earmarks that we're seeing now. What was
Mhm.
happening, you know, with people who hate people because of their race. And I remember going to the Holocaust Museum in Berlin a few years back, maybe 5 years ago. And the very first thing when I walked in that door, it said, "If it can happen, it can happen again."
That's right.
And I was just, you know, blown away because, you know, you there's such comparison to what is happening today to that time of the Hitler regimen, and how
Mhm.
people didn't think it would go as far as it did, you know. And so, it's scary times. It can be a very scary time for a lot of individuals. And my hope, like I say, and I don't want to put this out that it's them against us, because it's not that way. It's basically people who are extreme in their thinking, and thinking that um, Mexican Americans shouldn't be in this country, or Latino people shouldn't be in this country. And that's just, the diversity that we have had as a country has made this country stronger.
Right.
And to see that DEI programs in across the board are being disrupted, or what have you, and you're seeing where people are protesting against certain stores, and I'm not naming any, or they're telling people not to, uh, go to those stores, or to buy the products that were, that's where we're at, people. That's where
Mhm.
we are at, a time that is unprecedented, I think, in our country in the last 50 years, at least, in my lifetime. We've had some issues way back, and that's part of the reason why, organizations like the Union Civica were founded in 1945. And like I've said earlier on this show, I'm just flabbergasted that, here we're fighting the same issues. It's just unbelievable to me. And so, I really, want to commend you on your work, Faith, and what you're doing there, and all your counterparts, because it's needed. It's very much so needed. And I know when I've heard you speak, you bring a little bit of calmness to the angst that I'm feeling at this time, and I am feeling it, because, as I've said in my journalistic career, I have always fought for the rights of my people. And that's why Mi Gente magazine, which Mi Gente means my people, that's why it exists. My people, and my people are under attack at this moment in time, in this history, this dark period. And I'm hoping that, we stay strong, we rise up, and we fight the hatred that is coming because of this administration. So is there any last comments that you want to bring as we come to a close of a very fast show? Didn't I tell you it's going to go
It
fast?
went by very quickly. Well, first, I just have to say thank you for providing this space and this platform to be able to build together in community, and especially elevate the tangible resources and organizations like the ACLU of Michigan, who are committed to building community and ensuring that those sources are in the hands of community members to hold folks accountable. And I just have to give acknowledgement that our community is strong and has withstood many years of blatant mistreatment, and also many years of strong and forceful activism and advocacy that we can only do if we're advocating for ourselves. So I encourage folks that are listening to educate yourself and know that these issues cross party lines. These are not solely Republican, Democrat, independent issues. These are human issues and civil rights that we have to withstand and build protections for, and expand where we're able to ensure that there's an existence of us for years to come. And we can only do that by being proactive and building community with one another. So I encourage folks, again, if you're interested and would like to learn more about our work at the ACLU of Michigan, please go to our website at aclumich.org. You can sign up for our emails. You can field through maybe much of the chaos that you might be hearing and get some source and education directly from us. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us here today. I just want to ask you one quick question. Is there any other organizations that you guys are working closely with? I know, like the Ezekiel Project here in Saginaw is one of them. And is there any other ones that you can mention?
Yeah, I'd like to just give acknowledgement also to MERC, as I mentioned, the Michigan Immigrants' Rights Center. They are one of the organizations that unfortunately had a lot of funding cut due to a lot of the executive orders that were going around. So this is a great partner in the space of immigration advocacy. So I encourage folks. They similarly, all of our resources are done in collaboration with one another. So you will often see both the ACLU and MERC's name on formats as well. So I encourage folks to educate yourself in that space by following those organizations.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Faith Signs, for being with us from the
Thank you.
ACLU. And we're so proud of you. Thank you for being there for our community. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. It was a great show, and we'll continue on in this march, for our civil rights as always. And for here on Mi Gente on Air, I say good night and thank you for joining us. So there you have it. We had Faith Signs here in the room, and there was a lot of comments. And I got to say, your Uncle Eric is on here too. I can say that on the live. I can say that on the live stream, right? And he says, "Love you, great job, you guys, proud." He uses a Spanish word that I can't report.
I already know what he's saying.
Yeah, I know. So, Montes, she says, so awesome. Jennifer Gutierrez Science says, very informative. Well done. Diana Rivera is also saying, if trans, they declare preference of lockup power, women versus men. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Diana. I think you didn't write it all out right, but she's asking a question there. Maybe we can address, go back later. But there is, a lot of angst in our community, and I think that we really have to try to be united as a community, and take this on, and for the betterment of our health and our minds, and we just have to be calm, everybody, and thank you for all. Any last comments, Faith, that you want to say, because you've been so good in your delivery?
Thank you. I'm hopeful that I was able to shed some light in spaces where folks are similarly feeling this angst, and I can understand and recognize that it's not going to go away, right? Things are only going to progress. We're only going to continue hearing more and more in the media. And I have to give remembrance to what Larry said earlier, and that your mental health is extremely important. We have to acknowledge and recognize where our capacity is at hearing and being infiltrated with much of this news. And so I encourage folks that go to the source where you're able, be open-minded when we're talking about issues that are extremely important, and also recognize that we're at a point in time in history where this goes beyond party lines. This goes beyond many of the issues that you probably were thinking about when you were voting, which is so imperative and important. But also know that these issues you have to hold accountable to every body of government. So if you've never emailed your lawmaker, email your lawmaker. Let them know that you are their constituent. You're interested in knowing what their purposes and their goals are in the legislature this year. Email your congressional members, email your city council, your school board, and really just take a strategic and active role in being engaged in this work moving forward. I am so appreciative of you sharing this space with me and inviting me on, and I look forward to continue building community, especially with my Saginaw members. I currently live in Detroit, but I'm always coming home to visit, so I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. Again, everybody, adelante. Let's move forward and let's go on and have faith with Faith Signs. Adios. We'll see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air.